Malaysian official. We should try to take advantage of the US-China trade war while it can. Malaysia should take advantage of the opportunities arising from escalating trade tensions between the US and China, the Malaysian Finance Minister Lim Guandang told CNBC on Thursday. The country's problem is with manufacturing capacity, as it is struggling to ramp up production in the shortest possible time, he said. Malaysia should take advantage of the opportunities arising from escalating trade tensions between the US and China, Malaysian Finance Minister Lim Guandang told CNBC on Thursday. The Malaysian economy has been influenced by the ongoing trade war between Washington and Beijing, he said, but that could actually be positive for the country in the short run, despite the outlook appearing a bit uncertain, Lim said. There have been many inquiries from those who wish to be in the right position if the trade war escalates, he said. Our problem at the moment, with our manufacturing industries, is a problem of capacity, whether we can ramp up capacity in the shortest possible time, Lim said. There's a lot of inquiries, not only from China, but also from United States. We should try to take advantage of the situation whilst we can, he added. But he acknowledged that in the long term, we hope the trade war would fizzle out because it's not good for the global economy, and what's not good for the global economy is not good for Malaysia in the long term. Lim said he supported global trade, especially if it is fair. New government's priorities. Malaysia's new government under Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad has said it was saddled with a debt of about 1 trillion ringgit, more than $241 billion from the previous administration. The country is also recovering from a multi-billion-dollar financial scandal surrounding state investment vehicle One Malaysia Development Board. We have to go through the legal process, and due process takes a long time, but we are getting there, Lim said, commenting on the current progress of recovering the missing funds from 1MDB. Another focus of the new administration has been to re-examine international deals struck by the previous government, with Mahathir traveling to China in August to renegotiate some of the deals backed by Beijing. Emphasizing that Malaysia is supportive of China's Belt and Road Initiative, a continent-spanning investment program meant to increase Beijing's economic and geopolitical clout, Lim said his country wants a fair deal. We do not want any unfair contracts, and we feel that some of these contracts entered into by the previous regime unfair to the country, and not in our national interest, he said. Beyond China, Lim said, Malaysia has been in close contact with other countries such as Japan and the US, stressing the need for his nation to build mutually beneficial relations. We do not want to enter into any deals or any contracts that would cost us to be in heavy debt. We do not want to cede or give up our sovereignty just because we are unable to pay off these debts, he added. We are supportive of global trade, especially if it is fair trade, Lim said. If it's not fair trade, then why should we be part of the deal? Lim himself is no stranger to controversy. He was recently acquitted of corruption charges from a 2016 case involving the purchase of a bungalow in Penang State, where he formerly served as chief minister. He had pleaded not guilty to both charges, saying they were politically motivated. More foreign investors turning to Malaysia due to trade war. Kuala Lumpur. The ongoing US-China trade war has spurred increasing interest among foreign investors to move their regional operations to Malaysia, said an International Trade and Industry Ministry official. With the Prime Minister's recent visit to China, there was already some excitement, and some companies there inquired on setting up manufacturing facilities here so that they could still penetrate the U.S. market, said MITI Secretary General Datuk Isham Ishak. Isham said, MITI has, meanwhile, also formed a task force to monitor the opportunities and risks of the trade war to Malaysia. The companies that typically show interest to come here are those faced with high tariffs. The first batch was iron and steel companies. Now we also see a lot of solar companies interested to come to Malaysia. But the full cycle of the trade war is not yet complete, so there is still a lot of analysis that these companies need to do to decide whether or not it is viable to move their operations, he told reporters on the sidelines of the Investcom Merdeka dinner. Isham was representing MITI Minister Darrell Liking, who could not attend. Also present were Federal Territories Minister Khalid Abdul Samad and Deputy Women, Family, and Community Development Minister Hannah Yeo. Isham said, MITI is working on launching a new Industry 4.0 policy come October which will focus on leapfrogging current industries to embrace new technologies of the Industrial Revolution 4.0. It would also be good to address issues on hiring of foreign workers, he added. We were supposed to launch this in September, but we are finding it difficult to get the Prime Minister's date. We hope to launch it hopefully in the second week of October, he said. Isham said, the policy is also necessary in order to continue attracting foreign investors in the future. To date, Malaysia has attracted more than 5,000 foreign companies from more than 40 countries, he said. How Malaysia can overcome identity politics and create inclusive growth amid diversity. Andrew Shing says on the 55th anniversary of the formation of the Federation of Malaysia, the country must grapple with channeling its diversity into building an inclusive knowledge society. Was it only 55 years ago when the Federation of Malaysia was formed on September 16, 1963? On that day, I was super proud to witness at the parade ground in Jesselton the formation of an independent nation, with Sabah and Sarawak joining the 11 states of Malaya. One forgets easily today that it was a time of grave uncertainty when the Philippines had to claim on North Borneo and Indonesian President Sukarno was actively against the idea of Malaysia. When a country is in its middle age, its citizens could be forgiven for reflecting on those golden days when we did not think we were just Malays, Chinese, Indians, Kadazans, Ibans, or Orang Asli. We were simply Malaysians, proud to be rid of colonialism and eager to form a unified, independent nation. Economically, Malaysia has become, according to McKinsey Global Institute, one of 7 outperformers that have achieved real per capita gross domestic product growth of more than 3.5% annually for the past 50 years. The other 6 are China, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Singapore, South Korea, and Thailand. But globalization has also created inequality, particularly between rural and urban dwellers. Malaysia was one of the first countries to tackle inequality seriously. The new economic policy was a pioneering effort to narrow the economic and wealth gap. The policy succeeded in creating a Bumiputra professional class, but it has not succeeded so far in creating a Bumiputra entrepreneurial class. The dilemma is that entrepreneurship cannot be nurtured politically, because cronyism overwhelms entrepreneurship, and without entrepreneurship at all levels to generate inclusive income and wealth, inequality will persist. In Malaysia, identity politics has made nationhood more complex. As political philosopher Francis Fukuyama observed in Foreign Affairs recently, groups have come to believe that their identities, whether national, religious, ethnic, sexual, gender, or otherwise, are not receiving adequate attention. Fukuyama pointed out that multiculturalism has become a vision of a society fragmented into many small groups with distinct experiences. The more specialized we become by profession, creed, or religion, the more we break up into pockets that do not talk to each other, even when we use the same language. This is true not only in the United States but almost all across the world. The central challenge, in Malaysia, as in the rest of the world, is how to define larger and more integrative national identities that take into account the de facto diversity of liberal democratic societies. Because Malaysia is both diverse culturally, religiously, and ethnically, as well as connected globally, the quality of education has been seriously debated, since education also shapes identity. To progress, education, and reskilling, how our citizens are equipped for the modern age will determine what management theorist Peter Drucker called a knowledge society. Competitive knowledge defines future growth and prosperity, not the color of students' shoes, which the new Minister of Education chose to focus on. To Drucker, the knowledge society, by definition, is a competitive society with knowledge accessible to everyone. But widespread knowledge means that aspirations as well as frustrations increase simultaneously. Polarization occurs precisely because not everyone has benefited from the knowledge age. Success through entrepreneurship comes first from failures. Thus, the willingness to accept failure and yet protect the needy is not just an economic issue, but also a moral and political imperative. How to do this has been the fundamental challenge of building an inclusive yet prosperous society. Traditionally, the state or the firm have taken care of the social good. But with the rise of free market capitalism, most companies pay lip service to their social responsibilities, focusing mainly on their bottom line. Furthermore, increasing the size of the bureaucracy not only does not deliver the expected quality of social services, but also becomes a source of corruption. Drucker suggested we need a social sector that enables individuals to help contribute to society through the sphere of community service. What he means is that a community cannot be an artificial concept, but requires all of us to work together daily to solve common problems, not delegate them to another government agency or hope that profit-oriented companies will take care of them for us. That means growth will come from experimental diversity, not from centralization. Because Malaysia is a federation, the centralization of powers has not solved many of the complex problems at the local level. What is needed is more delegation of powers, allowing different communities to experiment. In 2018, Malaysia voted for change. Thus, the nation would be stronger if the government does less and the communities do more for their own futures. Since he became Minister of Education in 1974, then Minister of Trade and Industry, and Deputy Prime Minister, and twice Prime Minister, Mahathir Mohamad has shaped Malaysia's most important policies for 29 years out of 55. With a coalition government of very diverse interests, there is both hope as well as a cacophony of different signals. Amid all the noise, the external environment has become as confusing and dangerous, with the trade war, emerging market crises, and geopolitical rivalry. How the nation will celebrate its 60th birthday depends much on how Mahathir steers Malaysia to set his legacy straight. That is the true Malaysian dilemma. Malaysia Bank seen holding key rate on U.S.-China trade war concerns. Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia's central bank is expected to keep its benchmark interest rate unchanged at a meeting on Wednesday, as it keeps tabs on how far the United States and China will take their ongoing trade war. All 11 economists polled by Reuters see Bank Negara Malaysia, BNM, holding its overnight policy rate at 3.25%. Malaysia has raised its policy rate once this year by 25 basis points in January. That was its only hike since July 2014. BNM is expected to maintain a neutral stance in its monetary policy, as the economy faces the twin issues of a potentially slowing economy and global market uncertainty, Standard Chartered said in a note on Friday. An important factor going forward is whether the U.S. and China expand the scope of bilateral tariffs beyond the current U.S. $50 billion worth of goods on each side, the bank said. The central bank reported growth of 4.5% in the second quarter of this year, the slowest pace since the last quarter of 2016. BNM Governor Nur Shamsi Mohd Yunus also revised their 2018 full-year forecast to 5%, down from an earlier range of 5.5%-6.0%. To manage the effects of a weakening ringgit, which has depreciated since April, the central bank will no longer force exporters to convert proceeds into ringgit and will allow flexibility for hedging. Since April 2, the ringgit has lost 6.79% against the dollar and was trading at 4.122 as at midday on Monday. Things are slowly turning sour for the Malaysian ringgit, keeping USD/MYR on track to meet our 4.35 forecast for N 2018, said Prakash Sakpal, Asia economist, adding in Singapore. Not long after taking office in May, Mahathir scrapped a 6% goods and services tax and replaced it with a sales and services tax which took effect on September 1 after a 3-month tax holiday. Low inflation induced by government policy and the projected slowdown in growth will likely stay the central bank's hand on any changes to its key rate, HSBC said in a note on Friday. BNM will not change its monetary policy now, especially during a time of fickle capital flows, HSBC said. Trade war ripples are expected throughout Southeast Asia. Alan Ballard, executive director of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Secretariat, said the trade friction between Washington and Beijing is looking worryingly bilateral. Victor Ch, chairman and CEO of First Eastern Investment Group, said that many manufacturers in Southeast Asia could actually see benefits from the trade war in the medium or long term. As trade tensions continue to be a concern for the global economy, Ballard said it is essential for the next tier of economies and countries to step up and take leadership. Hanoi, Vietnam business and political leaders from throughout Asia gathered this week to meet in Hanoi for the annual World Economic Forum on the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. As the world's two largest economies continue to wage an escalating tariff war, global trade was one of the primary topics on the agenda. At the CNBC session, during the conference that was developed in partnership with the World Economic Forum, Alan Ballard, executive director of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Secretariat, said the trade friction between Washington and Beijing is looking worryingly bilateral. There are some big currents around this region coming from there, he added. For one, Hong Kong is grappling with the difficult trading climate, given the country's role as a bridge into and out of China, according to Victor Chu, chairman and CEO of First Eastern Investment Group. He said there will be serious repercussions if the trade war is going to be more than a short-term phenomenon. Chu mentioned that Hong Kong is looking at closer relationships with Japan and ASEAN while contributing to China. In fact, the city signed a trade agreement with ASEAN last November. Supply chains. If major economies don't resolve their trade disputes and instead descend into a long-term tit-for-tat trade conflict, then global supply chains would likely see significant disruption, experts have predicted. Chu said that a lot of the manufacturers here produce intermediate products for final assembly in China, and he suggested that Southeast Asian manufacturers could actually see benefits from the trade war in the medium or long term. In the short term, however, it is actually quite difficult to replace China's supply chain, he said. Furthermore, the trade disputes could breathe fresh impetus into alternative regional trade deals like the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or CEP. Ignatius Darrell Liking, Malaysia's Minister of International Trade and Industry, said ASEAN should start thinking about consolidating together once more. He added that the region needs to start taking opportunities by creating an economy through ASEAN to cushion all the effects of the uncertain American-Chinese trade war. As trade tensions continue to be a concern for the global economy, Ballard said it is essential for the next tier of economies and countries to step up and take leadership. How ASEAN could benefit from the US-China trade war. ASEAN has been urged to find ways for its member states to join hands together to cushion any possible fallout from the trade war between the United States and China. Against the backdrop of an escalating trade war between the U.S. and China, Deputy Minister of International Trade and Industry Dr. An Kian-ming is advocating greater cooperation between ASEAN countries to package the region to foreign investors instead of focusing on country-specific promotion. He said Malaysia and its ASEAN counterparts should look at ways, as a comprehensive unit, to take advantage of this situation, as investors might be interested in relocating and investing more in Malaysia as a result of this trade war. Drawing reference to the strong two-way cross-border trade linkage in terms of investment and expertise exchange between Johor and Singapore, Ong said Malaysia should replicate this with other countries. He also noted that interest from Chinese companies to invest in Malaysia, coming through the Malaysian Investment Development Authority, has risen since last year. Instead of setting hub in Malaysia, Ong added that Chinese companies could use Malaysia as a connecting point to tap into the ASEAN market. He opined that the trade war between U.S. and China is less than likely to find a resolution in the short term, and Malaysia, being an open economy, will be affected by the trade duel. In that light, Malaysia should be open to investments and ratify trade agreements such as RCEP and CPTPP, which are yet to be signed, in order to strengthen its stance on remaining open to trade. As tariffs have gone down, the non-tariff measures has also gone down. That is why we need to have a greater push among the governments in ASEAN, with the help of the business sector, to come in and advise the government on the challenges they face so that we can remove or reduce some of the regulatory red tape with regards to the non-tariff measures, he said, referring to non-tariff barriers. Ong said in that regard, ASEAN is working together to compile a database of non-tariff measures so that the trade bloc could gather some of the regulatory and bureaucratic issues faced by companies when setting shop in another ASEAN state. International Trade and Industry Minister Darrell Liking urged all the relevant agencies in Malaysia to strive to reduce bureaucracy so as to facilitate more investments into the country. He also asked for all chambers of commerce within ASEAN to stand together and start trading with each other during a meeting with members of the Malaysia-Thailand Chamber of Commerce, MTCC, earlier last week. Retailers across the region do not see any immediate impact on their business. However, it is worth monitoring exchange rates, as RMB value might represent a variable to consider while working on price architecture.